sommes aujourd'hui dimanche 19 juin.
Rwanda is a small, densely populated country in East Africa. Rwanda is beautifully formed with attractive green hills, vivid wildlife, and everywhere you go, there's a beautiful sight to see.
Le Rwanda appartient à ceux qui le défendent vraiment. Et vous, les NHD, vous n'êtes pas des Rwandais.
In Rwanda, there are two major ethnic groups, the majority Hutus and the Tutsis. The Twa form about 1% of the population. When the Belgians first colonized Rwanda in 1916, they issued passports that listed a person's ethnicity. The Belgians favored the Tutsis, giving them power, money, and protection. The Hutus, of course, were jealous, and many hated the Tutsis from that point on. After the Belgians left in 1959, there was much fighting between Hutus and Tutsis, and many Tutsis fled the country. Most traveled to Uganda, where they organized the Front Patriotique Rwandais, or Rwandan Patriotic Front, a Tutsi army with hope to one day take back Rwanda.
In Africa today, a plane carrying the presidents of two African nations has apparently been shot down as it was coming in for a landing in the capital of Rwanda. UN officials say that both presidents were killed. They're the leader of Rwanda, where a civil war formally ended a few months ago, and the leader of Burundi, where a civil war is still raging.
That's an important day in history because it's the day that the plane of the Rwandan president at that time, Juvenal Habyarimana, was returning to Kigali from peace talks in Arusha, Tanzania. And we don't know which forces fired the missile that downed his plane, but the downing of his plane launched the genocide. So within 2 hours of that event, the roadblocks had gone up and the killing had started.
The Hutus created a radio station called Radio Mircolin, or RTLM, and used it to broadcast hate and urge people to kill. Announcers referred to the Tutsis as cockroaches and ordered the Hutus to go to work or exterminate the cockroaches. One of the few recordings not to have been destroyed is from June 1994.
Avis à tous les NHD qui nous écoutent, oui, à tous les NHD qui nous écoutent, le Rwanda appartient à ceux qui le défendent vraiment. Et vous, les NHD, vous n'êtes pas des Rwandais.
At the end of the 100-day genocide, 10% of the population had been killed. Between 800,000 and 1 million Tutsis and moderate Hutus dead. Author and Rwandan genocide expert Philip Gorvich calculated that approximately 5 people died every minute. That's around 13 deaths since the start of the film, or 300 in 1 hour. 800,000 is around the population of San Francisco. If the genocide happened in San Francisco, the entire population would have been wiped out.
And we were locked down in the UN compound with our UN staff, right, asking us, do you want to stay? Do you want to go? And of course, we had no say because we couldn't leave the country. But eventually, UN personnel came about 5 days later and escorted us to Gatuna in Uganda. And that was a low point in the sense that we were only allowed to leave the country if we held a foreign passport. Rwandans had to stay, and we knew what would happen to them. Probably they were killed.
The Rwandan genocide ended when the RPF was able to enter the country, led by the man who is today President, Paul Kagame. At this point, they are finally aided by several foreign countries. The man probably best known for helping to save lives during the Rwandan genocide was Paul Rusesabagina, whose story was told in the movie Hotel Rwanda.
You're dirt. We think you're dirt, Paul.
Who is we?
The West, all the superpowers, everything you believe in, Paul. They think you're dirt. They think you're dung. You're worthless.
I'm afraid I don't understand what you are saying, sir.
You're the smartest man here. You got them all eating out of your hands. You could own this freaking hotel, except for one thing. You're black.
My role in the genocide was very simple. During the genocide of 1994, I succeeded in helping 1,268 people survive. Nobody was attacked, nobody was massacred in the hotel, nobody was touched, and nobody was removed.
Attaqué, personne n'a été massacré dans l'hôtel, personne n'a été frappé et personne n'a été enlevé.
Lieutenant General Romeo Dallaire traveled to the beautiful green hills of Rwanda in 1993 under orders of the United Nations to monitor the recent ceasefire in the civil war. He soon learned from secret sources that extremist Hutus were preparing for greater violence. Dallaire sent a fax to the UN asking permission to intervene in order to stop the violence and requested more troops. He signed his fax "Pour ce que veut, allons-y." This means, where there's a will, there's a way. Let's go. 2 days later, Dallaire received a fax from UN headquarters in New York with orders not to intervene in any way. Dallaire, forbidden from action, tried everything he could to help the people that were helping the victims of the genocide.
He had about 2,500 UN soldiers and a little bit more. And this general, on April 7th, when the genocide just broke out, his army was evacuated among other foreigners. He remained alone without soldiers as a general, but without an army.
When the genocide ended, Dallaire returned home with post-traumatic stress and repeatedly attempted suicide. He asked himself this question: was his mission a success for following orders or a failure for letting thousands die?
Definitely, the international community failed in this whole process.
I believe the United Nations can be blamed for letting 800,000 people die. They knew what was happening in Rwanda and had the capacity to stop it, but didn't. Each person killed was someone's family member and someone's friend, but the UN ignored their cries for help. The international community had the responsibility to help because the Rwandans were human, just like them. 4 years after the end of the genocide, Bill Clinton, who had been U.S. President in 1994, traveled to Rwanda where he addressed the citizens of Kigali.
We did not immediately call these crimes by their rightful name, genocide. We cannot change the past, but we can and must do everything in our power to help you build a future without fear.
Unfortunately, history has kept repeating itself, and we always say the most two abused words in the world. Those are never and again. We always keep repeating never again, never again, never again. And never again has turned into again and again and again.